metabolism itself is still one of the, crucial things for your existence as a whole. Your metabolism creates your reality in the sense that your consciousness, your body, your mind, they all work on your metabolic engine. And the word metabolism itself translates into change. Everything is always changing in your metabolism. It's always running to some degree. And there are hundreds, even more, different pathways and processes in the body happening all the time. And to be healthy, to feel great, to have energy, to lose fat, to build muscle, you would need to at least know to a certain degree how to hack it or how to control it. So that's going to be the purpose of my presentation, to give you 5 principles and 5 keys or cheat codes, as I like to call them, to improving your metabolic health. First of all, I'll start by refuting a common misconception, which is that your metabolic rate slows down with age. But based on actual science, it's not really the case. At least it's not as severe as many people think it is. Because it goes to show that a lot of the things that control your metabolic rate and your metabolic health are determined by our lifestyle in general. And the reason why people start to gain weight with age actually has to do with just their current state of metabolism and their degree of insulin resistance. So what insulin resistance does is that it makes it more easy for you to store weight or store fat. And a lot of it has to do with your body's inability to store carbohydrates and glucose in the cells. And as a result, the glucose molecules stay in the bloodstream for longer. They start to cause more damage over time. And that's where all the ailments and metabolic disorders come in. And this also leads to leptin resistance, which refers to your body's inability to receive the satiety cues you would normally get from eating food. And as a result of that, people overeat calories and they gain weight from that as well. So the process works normally that you eat food, you get the calories, your fat cells release leptin, and the leptin will tell the brain that it has received enough calories, and as a result of that, you stop eating or you're satiated. With leptin resistance, which usually comes from insulin resistance or eating very hyper-palatable processed foods, then this leptin signaling becomes dysfunctional and the brain doesn't receive the signal. And as a result, you keep eating, you overeat, and you gain fat from that. So hack number 1 to override this process is resistance training. So lifting weights, doing calisthenics, any form of resistance is, I think, one of the most underrated and the most effective ways to actually improve your insulin sensitivity, leptin sensitivity, as well as overall metabolic health. And the funny thing about your metabolism is that the vast majority of your metabolic rate, or how many calories you burn per day, actually doesn't come from exercise or the activities you do. The huge vast majority of it, over 60%, comes from your basal metabolic rate, which is the processes that are required for you to stay alive. Breathing, different digestion processes, metabolic rate, heartbeat, all of that comes from your basal metabolic rate. And the more muscle you have, the higher your basal metabolic rate is. The other things that contribute to your daily calorie needs are exercise, activity thermogenesis, which is exercise, which is actually a very small amount. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, like fidgeting, tapping your feet. Some people are very hyperactive, so they're burning more calories in so doing. And the last one is the thermic effect of food, which refers to how many calories you burn to digest a particular food. So muscle by itself, just by existing, burns 2 to 3 times more calories than fat. And if you have more muscle, then you'll have a higher basal metabolic rate, and generally you will be healthier. Exercise, especially resistance training, also increases your insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake dramatically, and it can be almost like 100 times more efficient. If you're exercising, then you activate these different glucose disposal translocators like GLUT4, and that helps you to shuttle glucose into muscle tissue even without insulin. So it's very powerful, and it's actually more powerful than insulin itself if you exercise before. From a resistance training perspective, then free weights, the ones that require you to enforce some balance, like barbells, dumbbells, barbell squats, deadlifts, bench press, those they, based on research, do have a more superior hormonal response as well. They release more growth hormone, they increase more testosterone, they increase protein synthesis more, they make you build more muscle, and those kind of things. And based on the research, then the heavier loads are better than lighter loads and moderate loads, with the exception that if you're doing moderate weights, like about 10 repetition of your maximums, then keeping the rest shorter can overcome that. Hack number 2 is my favorite because I like sweet potato fries and pancakes. It's called carb backloading. So, the common knowledge is that you need to eat carbs breakfast and maybe lunch, and don't eat any carbs after 6 because you somehow magically store them as fat, which isn't true. I would argue that it's much actually smarter to eat carbs later in the day instead of the morning. And the reason for that has to do with the natural circadian rhythm. Yes, we are more insulin sensitive in the earlier parts of the day, but not in the morning, immediately after waking up. When you wake up in the morning, you're actually somewhat insulin resistant because of the higher amounts of cortisol your body produces naturally. And cortisol, the stress hormone, it increases fat burning, it's good for that, but it also makes you insulin resistant to a certain extent that it makes it easier to store calories as fat. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat breakfast, I'm saying you shouldn't eat carbs for breakfast. And it's actually much better to stay lower carb with higher protein for the satiety effects as well as the fat burning effects. And instead, the carbs should be eaten after workouts. The best time to do it is after resistance training because, like I said, resistance training activates GLUT4 receptors that increases your glucose disposal by 100-fold compared to being sedentary. Liver glycogen, that is only a very small amount that you can store, about 100 or 150 grams, and only like 500 calories. This gets depleted with fasting as well, so it takes only like 24 hours to deplete the liver glycogen, and in so doing, you go into ketosis as well. So it's not a good idea to eat a bunch of carbs in the morning. That would prevent these pathways from getting activated. So it's better to wait after you've lifted weights with resistance training. So this is an overview about the effect of different macronutrients on your system. So protein obviously has the highest thermic effect of food, so you burn the most calories for digesting protein. It's up to 20 to 30%. Carbohydrates actually also have a very decent thermic effect, so 7 to 15%, and fat has the lowest thermic effect, so you burn the least calories digesting fat. Hack number 3, glucose disposal agents. There are also supplements and natural ingredients that can enhance glucose disposal. The best one, or one of the best ones, is vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is very common. And just adding apple cider vinegar or any vinegar to your meal, salad dressing, or just drinking it from water before eating, that can dramatically lower the following glucose response from that meal. Next up, walking is very effective in lowering the postprandial glucose response, and doing that more frequently is actually better than having like a one single session of long walks. So 3 15-minute walks spread throughout the day is better than a 45-minute walk in only once a day. Chromium is one of my favorite minerals. So chromium enhances insulin sensitivity and allows glucose to enter the cells. If you're insulin resistant and you don't have enough chromium, then the blood sugar is going to stay elevated for a lot longer because your body can't store the glucose anywhere. You're insulin resistant and you don't have any glucose disposal agents either. If you're insulin resistant and you have enough chromium, you take it as a supplement or from dietary sources, then of course you don't clear the bloodstream completely, but it's actually still much better. Some of the glucose will get in thanks to the chromium that activates chromodulin inside the cells that helps to shuttle glucose into the cells. Here are some additional ones: alpha lipoic acid, magnesium, cinnamon, Guinea sylvestre, bitter melon extract, and vanadium. very common supplements, and even like cinnamon as a spice is very good. Hack number 4, the microbiome. It's a very vast, complex ecosystem. And we all know that by science now that the microbiome can have a huge impact on your insulin sensitivity and body composition as a whole. So here are some strains of bacteria or probiotics that can benefit your metabolic health and weight loss. Lactobacillus, things from starting from sauerkraut, ending with raw dairy, beneficial. Akkermansia, very good. You get it from polyphenol-rich berries and prebiotic fibers like artichoke and things like that. Pectin, that helps to feed Clostridia, a type of bacteria. You get it mostly from apple skins, and pectin as a supplement is very good. I've noticed very great results from that. And time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting also helps with the microbiome and actually helps to pretty much create more brown fat or beige fat by converting some of the white fat into brown fat. Hack number 5, not 3, is a high protein intake. So like I mentioned, protein has the highest thermic effect of food, and it also burns the most calories as a result of that. Protein also helps with muscle growth. So if you eat protein, enough protein, you'll build more muscle and you have a higher basal metabolic rate as a result of that. And the higher intake of protein also helps with weight loss and satiety. As an overview, here are the 5 metabolic cheat codes or hacks, very effective ones. Number 1, resistance training, some form of exercise that involves resistance. That's the best way to increase your insulin sensitivity and metabolic rate. Number 2, carb backloading. Eat your carbohydrates after exercise because that's the best time to do it. You're the most insulin sensitive after resistance training. Number 3, use different glucose disposal agents. The easiest ones, vinegar and walking. Number 4, microbiome. Eat different kinds of probiotic foods as well as polyphenol-rich berries and vegetables. And lastly, higher protein intake. That helps with the metabolic rate and muscle growth. All right. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, then I'll be around for a little bit.